I mean, the Trump administration has proposed a $500 million cut to the FBI's funding for 2026. How are you going to maintain the effectiveness if you don't have the resources?
We just can't focus on one thing. You want New York to go boom? DC to go boom? You want an OC organization to go hack into some cyber network and crack all of Fox News' holdings? We're dealing with all that stuff, too. Everything's a priority. Everything's a priority. This is one of many things we're doing. It's not an excuse. It's just reality.
It's Ken Harbaugh with the Midas Touch Network. I don't know about you, but this team does not inspire confidence. That was the deputy director of the FBI, Dan Bongino, saying, "Do you want New York to go boom?" If these guys can't keep their cool during a Fox News interview, how do you think they're handling the pressure of leading America's premier law enforcement agency? Spoiler alert, not well. But this is what happens when you build your career, your reputation, by tearing things down, and then suddenly find yourself in a position where you have to lead and build. They are not up to it. As much as I want to gloat at how bad these two are at their jobs, I cannot, because the lives of Americans are at stake. We've had multiple high-profile attacks on U.S. soil in the last week, including a terrorist bombing of an IVF clinic. Can we count on the FBI to keep us safe? I put that question to Kris Goldsmith. He's an Army vet and the president of Task Force Butler, which has done groundbreaking work delivering intel to law enforcement agencies that's been used to prosecute domestic extremists. If anyone understands the threats we face and why a functioning FBI matters now more than ever, it's Kris. Welcome to the Ken Harbaugh Show. I've got Kris Goldsmith back. He's I guess it's safe to say by now, our resident Nazi hunter here on the Ken Harbaugh Show. He runs Task Force Butler, which identifies and tracks and holds accountable extremists across the country. Kris, you called it. You said we were going to have political violence. I don't think there's any other way to describe what just happened outside this IVF clinic. Well, look, maybe you can parse it for us, and I hate to prejudge, but it sure as heck looks like a terrorist attack, politically motivated.
Yeah, the FBI is investigating as a terrorist attack. So as people are listening to this, last week, an IVF clinic was hit by kind of a different kind of incel. This is an anti-natalist. So this is a nihilistic person, a young man who believes that no one should have children. So this should not be confused with the pro-natalist extremists that Trump just pardoned. But the effect of the non-enforcement of the FACE Act, the Freedom of Access to Clinic Entrances Act, is the same. IVF clinics and abortion clinics are targeted by these extremists, both on the pro-natalist and anti-natalist side, for the same reason, because they believe that families who are using science to build families, like I am doing right now. My wife is pregnant because of an IVF implanted embryo. We are less than 2 weeks away from the birth. Extremists on both sides think that what I am doing is a sin, and in some cases, a sin worthy of execution as punishment. So the reason that I want more people to pay attention to this is because I think that everyone thinks about reproductive rights only as an abortion issue, but it is not. So even when it comes to people who may be uncomfortable with abortion, there's room for people to understand and appreciate that there are several layers to this issue and that it's not black and white, that people shouldn't prejudge the reproductive rights issue. And I'm using air quotes here intentionally. The reproductive rights issue as if it is something that is simple, that it doesn't require some real actual thought. To be clear, I am an absolutist when it comes to reproductive rights. I believe that every person has the right to choose when, where, and how they want to start a family, or to choose not to start a family at any time. But none of these beliefs are worthy of of execution. And that is what this terrorist last week attempted to do when he blew up a vehicle-borne improvised explosive device outside of this clinic.
Hey, it's Ken Harbaugh. Huge shout out to everyone who has supported this show via our Patreon page. If you want to weigh in with questions for upcoming guests or give us feedback on past guests or make sure you never miss an episode, click the link below. It's free to sign up. And if you're able to pitch in a few bucks a month, just know that we put every dollar back into the show. We do have another reporting trip to Ukraine coming up. Thanks for the help. The other issue that this highlights for me, and I would imagine people who are looking 2 steps ahead, is that we actually need a competent FBI, right? We've lived in sort of this fantasy with Kash Patel and Dan Bongino running the agency that it can be their plaything and we can laugh at them and there won't be repercussions. But there are bad guys out there, right? And having 2 unqualified bad guys in their own right running the agency, it exposes America to real risk. And I've lost confidence, but I think eventually many Americans will lose confidence in the ability of the FBI to protect us from things like this, because it turns out that law enforcement is hard.
Yeah, and the FBI is going through the same thing that every federal agency is right now, which is a forced reduction in force, which is an intentional demoralization of all personnel. I think that a lot of people who support, Donald Trump and who are watching conservative media have this idea that it's just like left-wing ideologues that are being targeted, that are being punished, right? And I can understand why they would be sympathetic to that, even if it's still a stupid idea. But at the end of the day, every FBI agent has a job. And if you're trying to push out FBI agents by changing work requirements, by making it miserable to be part of the force, you're going to have a smaller, weaker FBI that is not capable of keeping the United States and our people safe from terrorist attacks, whether that's from domestic threats or foreign threats. It doesn't matter. If the entire FBI is being weakened, if it is being burdened with bullshit by Kash Patel and Dan Bongino, that affects the safety of every American. I don't think that most Americans until last week, and I don't know that this story has really broken through that much, but I don't think that most Americans thought that going to an IVF clinic was an inherently dangerous thing. But it is. The doctors, the nurses, the embryologists who are providing services to families like mine that are giving the gift of life to my family are risking their lives every day that they go to work. And again, bringing this back to the way that the Trump administration is making this worse is they are trying to, they may try to repeal the FACE Act, the Freedom of Access to Clinic Entrances Act, which makes it a felony, a federal felony, to obstruct, attack, or to harass patients or doctors by these reproductive rights clinics. Again, not just abortions, but also IVF clinics. The Trump administration is trying to deprioritize the enforcement of this law, and they have already pardoned dozens of violent extremists who have been convicted of the FACE Act and who have conspired against civil rights, the civil right that every person in this country has to start a family.
And while they are deprioritizing the enforcement of laws that keep Americans safe, they are prioritizing the persecution of minorities and other groups that don't pose a threat. I don't want you to speculate too much, so I'll do it for you. I would venture to say that this bomber was not a Muslim terrorist, was not an immigrant, right? Did not sneak across the border with fentanyl strapped around his waist. The FBI, I worry, because of political pressure, is focusing on the wrong threats.
Yeah, that's right. It is this antinatalist threat is not a new threat, but it's something that most people aren't tracking, including my team. My team has been focused, the researchers that I work with day in and day out have been focused on these pronatalists because they are much larger, they are much more active. They have extremist organizations that run as nonprofits like Operation Save
Wow.
America. They have been rewarded by Trump. Trump pardoned in his first days in office a woman who was convicted for stealing fetal remains. The remains of 5 fetus were found in this woman's home. Right, that's the kind of person that Trump is rewarding, treating like a hero. And while that is happening, there are new and novel threats of all kinds that are growing, that the FBI, being undermanned, under-resourced, and frankly sabotaged by Kash, Patel, and Dan Bongino, these threats are going to reach more Americans, and it is going to cause physical harm, emotional scarring, and potentially death if the FBI is not well resourced, and frankly, if the staff of the FBI is not given all of the support that they need to do their jobs.
Yep. Well, we got to leave it there, Kris. We'll keep tracking it. I know you will. Let's check in on this issue again soon.
Thanks a lot, brother.
Thanks.